Welcome back to the continuing saga of the Algae Filter episode here on LA Fishguys. It's the middle of July here in Southern California and it's hot. You can hear that refrigeration unit up there is running because the aquarium is being heated up by the ambient temperature. The results of our algae filter so far are kind of so-so. It's been a little over 2 months and maybe we're expecting things to happen a little too fast. The algae filter itself mechanically is working, but I'm not seeing that much of a reduction of algae or hair algae inside the tank. Here, let's check it out and let me show you. See here, the light on our algae filter is on. It's actually out of phase with the lights on in the tank, which I manually turned on this morning as I arrived. And you can see the algae is beginning to grow a lot of other interesting things in there, but we did drop the water level a little bit, and it's not affected our strainers, and we are getting a little surface agitation. And there's just a small amount of algae growing down inside there. What we're going to do today is try to remove some of the odd algae, try to keep as much of the Chaeto or spaghetti algae in there as possible, because that's the stuff that's going to help remove phosphates.
Technically, that's not true. All plant matters use phosphate in the building of cell structure. So regardless of what species of plant that's growing in there, they're all consuming phosphates. Some plants just grow faster than others, or give the impression that the faster they grow, the more phosphate they'll consume. Because this Chaeto or keto algae grows fast, it will consume nutrients quickly. But ironically, all these other algae, including the hair algae, are also feeding on the phosphates, and all are growing relatively fast in this algae filter. We just want to try to select the algae that grow the fastest and replace themselves the fastest. And while it may be a lack of intensity, although I tend to kind of disagree here, it could be that the other algae actually grow faster in this environment because the Chaeto or Cheeto doesn't seem to be growing that fast. As a matter of fact, the other algae are overtaking it. In addition to the algae filter's attempt to try to remove the hair algae from inside the tank, you might think it would have some effect on the algae growing on the inside glass or acrylic walls of the tank. In this case, this tank's never had really that big an algae problem as far as what grows on the glass, but there has been no change at all in the decrease or increase of algae that does grow on the glass. These magnets, called aquarium cleaning magnets, are two separate encapsulated strong rare earth magnets. One is placed on the inside of the tank, the other on the outside of the tank. Both of them have soft pads between them and the acrylic to minimize any scuffing or scratching of the tank. These magnets, when pulled back and forth, will follow each other and thus will clean the algae on the inside of the tank for you as well. You just have to be sure not to get gravel stuck on the inside of the magnets, whether it be on the inside or the outside, because you will very easily and quickly have Zorro or those switchbacks as a result of scratching the tank.
So I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed in the algae filter, but at the same time, we were kind of limited in the size and the space and the money that we could spend on it. I still think it's the right idea using one type of algae or plant to compete with the nutrients, or for the nutrients, that other things, in this case bad algae, are feeding on. But in this particular case, either I didn't have enough light, didn't have enough algae, the algae filter may not have been big enough, but this isn't a science experiment. This is a service customer's home, and you have to work within the confines or the space, as well as the money or budget that you've been given. So we're going to try a little bit different angle today. We're going to continue with the algae filter, but we're going to add some phosphate removing media, or should I say drops, to the water. This is a product called phosphate reducer, I believe. As I understand it, essentially it's a chemical called lanthanum. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I think it somehow binds with the phosphate in the aquarium, making it precipitate or fall out of solution. Now, the best way to deal with this would be to have a pleated or a micron sock that you could trap those particles out once they precipitate or fall out of solution. But I don't have that luxury on this system. So essentially, that precipitant will just settle into the gravel on top of the rocks and such, and we'll have to rely on going in and vacuuming the gravel or the current to keep it swept up to try to physically get it out of the system. I've had another service customer use this on his tank, and the algae problem kind of disappeared like that. So hopefully we'll have the same kind of success.
I've increased the size of the water change in this 150-gallon wannabe coral reef tank to 30 gallons every visit, and I'm here every other Monday. Of that 30 gallons, I try to devote about 20 of it to just sucking the algae, or as much of the algae, off the rock as possible. The other 10 I'll use for vacuuming the sand at the bottom of the tank. This algae really doesn't come off the rock very easily. I try to hold the end of the siphon hose at the tip of my fingers so that as I pick pieces off the rock, it's immediately sucked out and out into the bucket, which is on the other side of the tank. The idea being that I don't want that loose algae floating around the tank, because not only will it easily get caught on something else, but it'll just take that seed or spore to another spot in the tank.
And that's how we vacuum and do the water change in this algae-ridden tank. And now replenishing the water.
That's right, 30 gallons, 5-gallon jug at a time. In addition to filling the tank back up with new real ocean water, we'll also go ahead and add our pH buffer and clean the protein skimmer cup as well.
So now that we've finished the water change and sucked out as much of that dirty hair algae as possible, we've not given up on the algae filter. We just want to try something that's going to generate some quicker results. There's this product here called phosphate control. It's my understanding, although it might be a big secret, that this is a product called lanthanum, which again is going to help bind with the phosphate molecules in the water and basically make that molecule heavy enough that it just basically drops or falls out of solution or falls out of the water or precipitates, kind of like rain in the sky. The other reason we're going to use it is I had another service customer use it, and his algae problem, hair algae problem, seemed to have disappeared. So I'm up for anything at this point. The directions say 6 drops per 10 gallons. This is a 150-gallon tank, so that would take 30 drops. It also cautions you not to do more than that at one time in a 24-hour period. It also indicates there might be some haziness to the water. Well, this is the first time we're going to use this, so I'm going to go with half dose increments. May not be the solution this first time, but at least it's worth a try. So we're going to add 15 drops of this phosphate control media, and we'll see what happens.
Before we get too involved in removing the phosphate, we want to test the aquarium and determine what level we're currently at so that we have a starting point. And from there, we can then determine how effective the phosphate drops are actually doing. And once we've identified the starting point, we can then go ahead and begin to dispense the phosphate drops.
So we'll keep you posted on the phosphate removing drops. Make sure to come on back for more updates in future episodes. And always, in times of trouble and frustration, especially with aquariums, keep moving forward.